Okay, so we'll continue with our discussions. In the last 2-3 lectures, 2-3 units, we have seen in the first unit we have discussed about the disaster in general, the statistics, and how India is vulnerable to different disasters and so on and so forth. Okay, and in the second unit we discussed about the flooding, okay, and how flood impacts across the Indian subcontinent and so on and so forth. The third unit was about earthquake, and fourth unit was about cyclone. In cyclone, we went on to see how global wind and other aspects, and also the tropical cyclone and how is it formed, and what is the intensity, and so on and so forth, and in how it impacts the Indian subcontinent. And we skipped unit 3, and which will continue today, that is on the earthquake. Okay, and also I've been saying that we'll all discuss the mitigation, the structural measures exclusively for cyclone, for flooding, and also about earthquake. Okay, and I also expect that you will be reading primarily on these lines. What are the measures taken in terms of flooding, in terms of earthquake, and in terms of cyclone, and so on and so forth. Okay, so and also we have one more unit that we will discuss on traditional knowledge and how that is helping, how people have responded earlier, and what we can learn from the traditional knowledge. Yeah, so we'll continue with this. Yeah. So in this unit there are certain keywords that is mentioned. We will be going through all of it. Yeah, just one second. Yeah, so these are some of the keywords that is given in your syllabus, and probably we will be touching all the keywords, okay, that is mentioned in your syllabus, so that we understand the basics, basic science, and also what code says about how do we respond to the earthquake, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and also specifically on retrofitting measures for earthquake or seismic load. Okay, so in the beginning I have put some keywords that we need to understand, and probably some little bit of science. Probably you must have read it in your schools as well, but we will just quickly go through it here, so that we have comprehensive understanding on what is an earthquake and how do we define it. Yeah, so the movement of Earth's crust resulting from the release of potential energy, which is the cause of concern for us, and how that energy comes out and how it impacts the land surface is what we are interested in, and that's why we try to understand this subject. Okay, so there are two keywords normally associated with when we say earthquake, and probably when you have read in the newspapers and also in the other media, they will say that the focus or the focus of the earthquake was 60 kilometers from the seashore, something like that, right? So what is that focus and what is that epicenter that normally is used when we define earthquake? Okay, so focus is a spot underground, okay, where the rock begins to break. For example, let's say this is one mass, and this is another mass, land mass, and when it begins to move, okay, at a particular point, okay, under the ground. That is called as focus, from where the potential energy, the energy is seismic energy is shed out. Okay, the epicenter is exactly the vertical point on the Earth's surface. Okay, the epicenter, the point on the land surface directly above the focus. Okay, so normally we the epicenter, as probably you must have heard, and we continue to hear, the epicenter of such and such earthquake was located and so kilometers away from so and so point. Okay, so that means it is actually what we see or what we feel at the Earth's surface. Okay, and actual impact occurs at the in underground, where the point at which the impact takes place is called focus. Yeah, so these are the two keywords that normally we use for defining the earthquake. Okay, and also there are certain keywords, further keywords that we also come across. One is called aftershocks, and the entire study is put under seismology. Okay, so the study of earthquake is termed as seismology. Aftershock is what? Actually, when the earth surface move, or the plates move, it has to settle down. The movement is not one time. Okay, so maybe the major movement will be one time, but it has to settle down depending on the strength of this rock and this rock. Okay, so it takes time to settle down at this particular configuration. Okay, so that's why we say that after major earthquake, okay, there will be a series of aftershocks that we will face. Why? Because the plate has to settle down after the initial movement of the landmass. Okay, so tremors that occurs as the rock adjusts to the new position. It settles down based on the configuration of the other mass. Okay, so these are some of the key words that is used when we talk about earthquake. And also you will come across a word called fault line. Okay, so the fault is a region on the Earth's surface that is broken into two pieces. Okay, there can be different types of faults that we can see. Okay, so when we say that the one mass has moved from the other mass, okay, the movement can be in three directions, actually in three directions. Okay, so that movement overall is called fault line. Normally we that word is used. Okay, so depending on the movement, the fault can be classified as three. Okay, for example, in this case, there is two directional movement you can see. Okay, in this picture as well. For example, let's say this line was supposed to be here. Okay, there is a shift in the landmass. Okay, this is the normal fault line, or the normal fault. The first classification of fault is called normal fault, where there is an upward movement of one in the upward movement on the reverse of it. Okay, sometimes the reverse can also happen. For example, this is the opposite of what the normal fault is. Okay, where fault line, the other mass will go up. Okay, the reverse can take place. Okay, so for example, here in this case we said this mass has moved up. Okay, and this has tried to settle down. Okay, the reverse will take place. This mass may come up. Okay, and this will try to settle down. Okay, so normal fault or reverse fault can happen because of earthquake. And the third type of earthquake is called the lateral shifting of the masses. Okay, so the shifting can take place in three directions. Okay, so this is one normal fault, the second one the reverse fault, or the third one is called the strip or the lateral movement of the earth surface. For example, this is very simple example to understand how the street has moved its direction. Okay, so there is a horizontal shift in the land surface as well. Here in both the cases it is the vertical shift. Okay, so here it is the horizontal shift. Just one second. Yeah, and when we talk about shift, okay, and here we said there is a energy that is being released. Okay, there is an energy that is being released, that is the cause of concern for us. Okay, so how that energy behaves, okay, and how that energy impacts when it reaches the surface of the earth is what we are concerned with. So there have been studies and there have been many documented works how this energy is actually is felt. Okay, so for example, the entire energy is divided into two. One is called body waves, and the second one is called the surface waves. Okay, so how the energy is impacting the mass, okay, and the entire for example the entire the tectonic plates itself, or how the energy, and the second is how it is impacting the surface of these plates or the surface of this the earth. Okay, so Earth's energy is transmitted through Earth's seismic wave. Two types of seismic waves radiate from the focus. Okay, one is called body waves, transmit energy through Earth's interior surface. Okay, and there are two types of body waves. One is called the primary wave, normally called P waves, and it has a specific direction in which it moves. Okay, rocks vibrate parallel to the direction of the wave. Okay, and the result, squeeze and stretching of the plates can take place as a result of it. Can travel through any material. It can be the solid earth surface, it can be the water, and so on and so forth. Okay, and this is one of the fastest, it travels the fastest way. The second type of energy that is released is called the secondary wave. Rocks move perpendicular to the wave direction. For example, these are indicative images. For example, let's say this is S wave, where because of the energy, because of the potential energy that is released due to the earthquake. Okay, the plate is actually moved in perpendicular direction. Okay, there is a swing in because of the energy that is released. Okay, this is one of the crucial energy for which the buildings are designed. Okay, so we will discuss it when we discuss about what are the specific measures or retrofit measures that we give when for secondary waves and for primary waves. Okay, what is the characteristics? Side to side movement, or can travel only through solid and not in the other form. Travel a little more than half of the speed of P waves. Okay, so this is slightly less intense when we compare with the other energy. Okay, so seismic waves that travel along Earth's surface, when P and S wave reaches the surface, they make a wave called surface wave. Okay, so how do we classify so far? I told you broadly there are two types of wave. One is called body wave, and the second one is called the surface wave. Okay, within surface wave there are two things. One is called primary, and the other one is called secondary wave. Okay, both of it occurs at the plate under the plate's mass itself. But when the energy is reached on the surface, okay, there are two waves which are classified. One is called love waves. Okay, rock moves from side to side like snake. For example, this is one example how the movement can be because of release of the energy as a result of earthquake. Okay, then the second one is called relic waves. Okay, where some kind of a rolling pattern like waves can be seen in the in the movement of or in the displacement of Earth's surface. Okay, so these are the key words. Just to summarize again, what are seismic waves? Seismic waves are nothing but the energy released because of the earthquake. Okay, and normally the waves are divided into two. One is called body wave, and the other one is called the surface waves. Okay, this is primarily takes place under the plate. Okay, under the Earth's surface, where the entire energy is divided as primary or secondary waves. Okay, and primary has its own effect. Okay, what happens because of the primary wave, and because of the secondary waves, what happens, how it impacts the body can be understood from it. When this energy reaches the surface of the earth, okay, it is called as surface waves. Okay, and that wave is again divided into two. One is called love wave, and the other one is called relic waves. Okay, so based on the characteristics of how the energy is transferred, the name has been kept for this. Okay, other keywords: seismometer, an instrument to detect seismic waves; seismograph, a device that measures the magnitude of the Earth's the earthquake. Then seismogram is a visual record of arrival time and magnitude of the impact. And then the intensity can be actually measured from low to high depending on what is recorded. Normally we come across this word Richter scale, which is again one of the units used for defining or for saying what is the intensity of the impact that is created. Okay, normally this is logarithmic scale. What is logarithmic scale? I hope you will be able to follow, or I have given an example in the coming slide where I'll tell you how why this scale is very essential. Richter scale has got magnitude based on the amplitude of the wave. The second one is total energy released. Uses movement. Both these units are used when we say that there is an energy, there is an earthquake of so and so Richter scale. For example, Richter scale is based on log scale, meaning that each subsequent number is 10 times more in amplitude of vibration. This translates to about 30 times more energy than the previous number. For example, let's say if we read in the newspapers or somewhere, or if we get to here, there is a Richter scale of 4 earthquake is observed. Okay, And at the same time, if you come across, there is an Richter scale of 5 earthquake is observed in such and such a location. So this may be a slight increase in one number, but actually if you see in terms of magnitude and the total energy that is produced, like it says, is 10 times the vibration and 30 times more energy is released when between the numbers. Okay, for example, an earthquake of 5 Richter scale is 10 times greater than an earthquake of 4 on the Richter scale. Okay, and it will release 30 times more energy when we compare it with the next scale. Okay, and how is it measured? How the epicenter or focus point is located? They use arrival time at a recording station to locate epicenter of the of a particular earthquake. Okay, time lag between P and S wave is one of the techniques used for identification of the epicenter or the focus point. Okay, and probably now you will be able to relate it. Okay, P is the energy released and it can be felt under the earth's surface, and S is the energy surface wave where we actually feel, or where it can be where we can observe on the surface of the earth. Okay, and 3 such station has to confirm that similar thing has been observed. Only then the earthquake is actually notified. Okay, and depending on the depth of focus, earthquake can be shallow focus. It can be under 70 kilometers under the earth's surface. It can be up to, it can be intermediate focus, where the earthquake is located 70 to 300 kilometers under the earth's surface. Okay, and it can be a deep focus as well, where the focus point is more than 300 kilometers. I hope now probably if you relate this with this image, okay, the focus and the epicenter, and this can vary up to more than, it can go up to any number, we don't, but depending on the intensity, they have classified as 3, as we can see in this slide. Okay, shallow focus, or it can be intermediate or deep focus. And using these things, the focus and the epicenter is notified by the concerned agency. Okay, and what are the things that we should know, and how it will have an impact on the Earth's surface? So I was reading some articles on this, and this is one indicative diagram taken from my book. Okay, probably I'll share the reading material when I share this PPT. So where many such diagrams have been depicted. Okay, so I thought this is one simple example where we can understand how the energy, as when the earthquake energy, seismic energy reaches the earth's surface, depending on the material, depending on the surface material that we have, each material will behave in its own way. Okay, so for example, let's say this is in a progressive manner. You can understand this. It's a very simple diagram. The amplification of shaking is put from low to high. Okay, and these are the material characteristics. Okay, so if we have hard indigenous rock, okay, the amplification or the shaking is very limited and very minimal. When we see this sedimentary rock, okay, so there is a double the time, or there is more shaking when we compared with the hard surface. And alluvial and other surface finishes, or not surface finish, sorry, the soil characteristics, depending on different soil characteristics, the amplification of shaking can vary. Okay, for same intensity, let's say of 4 Richter scale. Okay, so different vibration or different shaking of earth can be observed depending on the soil characteristics. Okay, so this is also gives a hint that the zones are classified. Okay, we have zones, right? Different zones, zone 4, zone 5, and so zone 3, zone 1, and like that. I have put an image also how the entire country is divided into different zones based on the vulnerability, earthquakes vulnerability. Okay, we'll see that as well. So the soil characteristics is one of the main parameter used for classifying the zones. Okay, which is more vulnerable and which is less vulnerable. Okay. Most of the earthquake occurs in the specific circum-specific regions. About 80% of it occurs there, and we are concerned with the Himalayan range. Okay, when we discussed about in the Indian physiology. Okay, and we did discuss how the Himalayan range is actually it is helping in some way, and it is also one of the causes for some of the disasters. Okay, one such disaster is the earthquake. Okay, and there is always there is a saying that a big disaster is awaited in Himalayan range. Okay, so probably there's one documentary also on that. Maybe if you can Google it, you will get to know. An earthquake of more than 8 or 8.5 Richter scale is actually forecasted or is predicted in near future, and on the Himalayan range. Okay, so how it impacts, okay, that is what we are concerned with, and how we can prepare our cities and building for it. Okay, so earthquake it is not necessarily that only the shaking of the building or the collapse of building is cause of concern for us. Apart from these things, there are other things that will result as a result of earthquake. Okay, so we have seen similar things when we discussed about floods as well, and also when we discussed about cyclones. It is not only about, for example, in case of flooding, it is not only about the water level reaching or indentation at a different speed and phase and so on and so forth, but also the aftermath of the flooding. Okay, maybe it can be the spread of diseases and so on and so forth. Okay, and the accumulation of debris and so on and so forth. Yeah, and similarly in case of cyclones as well, post cyclones, we have seen that earthquake can also be one of the aftermath effects of a cyclone, and also we have seen the flooding maybe because of the cyclone, and also we have seen other disasters that may be impacted because of one disaster. Similarly, in case of earthquake as well, okay, apart from the kind of impact that leaves, there are other things that will take place. For example, ground displacement. It can be lateral or vertical ground displacement. Okay, and that will cause a major problem for us. For example, let's say if that takes place in the in the national highways or important corridors. Okay, and that is also one such thing that we may encounter. Landslides, okay, is also another. This is one example for indicative image for landslide and as a result of earthquake. Okay, so landslide itself is a disaster, but here this is induced because of the earthquake. Liquefaction, okay, and this is one of the commonly used word when we discuss about liquefaction. Okay, what is it? Conversion of formally stable fine grained materials into a fluid mass. This is an example for liquefaction. What happens is, for example, this is the earth surface, okay, and this is let's say it was stable and it has got enough bearing capacity, soil bearing capacity, SBC. Probably all these words you are aware. You must have been discussing these words in your structures class as well, right? Soil bearing capacity, let's say prior to the earthquake, maybe it was good, and where we have constructed buildings, okay, and as a result of some displacement under the plate, okay, so this soil will lose its stability, okay, and it will behave it will lose stability and it will behave like a fluid, or fluid in the sense it will lose its strength, okay, and it will behave like a water, okay. So it will no longer hold all the loads that we have put on the surface, okay. So maybe when I have in the next class, tomorrow's class, I will show you some case studies as well with specific examples, how we can understand, how we can, by looking at the image, we can understand that, okay, whether the damage is due to structural failure or it is because of the ground failure, and so on and so forth, okay. So liquefaction is one of the common effects of earthquake, okay, that we should understand. Other thing is seisures, where this is also probably you must have seen in videos and so on and so forth. If we have a swimming pool, okay, and if the energy is transferred, the seismic load is transferred to this particular water, okay, and it will be restless, okay, and it will there will be a back and forth movement of water within this container, okay. So as if like we are just hitting this mass and it is moving, and because of it there will be huge displacement of water back and forth, okay, and that will also cause a problem. Where, for example, swimming pool is one example. Other example that we can relate is also the overhead tanks. Suppose if you have very big overhead tanks, okay, and if we feel if a tremor or earthquake is felt, and of course there will be shaking in the building, and the problem will escalate if this particular water body or this particular water tank starts dissipating or absorbing the energy, okay. So this is another example directly we can think of when we talk about others. And actually this is one here we are discussing this as one of the problems. The same is actually used as a solution also. For example, maybe I will show you when we discuss about retrofitting measures and seismic measures. In tall high-rise buildings, this is actually voluntarily created, designed water bodies are created so that the energy is balanced, okay. So in some cases this is used as a positive intervention, and if it is not designed properly, and if it is not it is not meant to behave the way it should behave, then it will be a cause of concern for us. Okay. So the other one is the earthquake may lead to tsunamis as well, and we have seen evidences in the past. For example, the Chennai tsunami that that we have seen, and also it may lead to fire as well. Okay, maybe because of the kind of rupture taking place. Okay, this is also one effect that we can think of, or when we probably will encounter as a result of earthquake. Okay, so when we discuss about earthquake, it is not only the earthquake and the impact of that on the buildings and the cities. There are other effects. Okay, so that also has to be parallelly thought of and understood. Okay, so this is all about the basics and also some specific things on how it will impact, the earthquake will impact on the buildings and the earth surface. How do we cope with the earthquake is one thing that we should learn, and this from here, all the discussions that I will be doing now is all taken from NBC. Okay, so NBC has got very detailed, NBC 2015 you can take, where very detailed descriptions are given, how descriptions about earthquake, the fundamentals of earthquake, and how it impacts the building, and the component that we should understand is very thoroughly discussed. Okay, and whatever I am going to explain now from here on is all taken from the National Building Code itself. Okay, so we don't need any other textbook for reference. National Building Code is more than good enough for us. So in that, when we discuss about how do we assess and how do we come out with coping strategy, there is a different stages and steps given. One is identification of earthquake zone, identification of plate boundaries, assessing local seismic history and future risk, land use planning, earthquake reinforcement of buildings and structures, short term and long term forecast and mitigation steps, contingency plans. Okay, and under these heads there are different things are discussed. We will be going through some of it in the coming slides. So if you see the settings of India, okay, we have seen the similar descriptions when we discussed about flooding and when we discussed about cyclone as well. India is prone to many disasters, okay, and earthquake is also one of the disasters. And also since we have very big landmass, the other day we discussed, right, it's more than 7,000 kilometers of shorelines and so on and so forth is also there, because of which the entire Indian subcontinent is vulnerable to various forms of disasters. Okay, and some, for example, in the south we have other issues, for example cyclone, flooding and so on and so forth primarily, and also earthquake is also one of the disasters, but here in the syllabus how they placed is, since we are located in the south, the primary focus was on the disasters that are directly useful. Okay, if we learn here, probably will be in a position to implement it in planning and design of buildings and cities. Okay, so earthquake is also one disaster that that we encounter in Indian subcontinent very frequently, and that's why this subject is put here. Okay. In order to predict the likely impact of earthquake on built environment in any part of the country, it is essential to know seismic vulnerability of built environment. Okay, so what is seismic vulnerability is what needs to be understood. The assessment of seismic risk involves estimation of consequences of an earthquake in a chosen area in terms of expected damage and loss from a given risk. Okay, so for assessment, seismic hazard is taken, vulnerability of structure is taken into account, exposure and loss estimation. All these four components are taken for coming out with risk assessment of a particular area in this. There are key words that is mentioned that we should know, and probably this is not specific only to earthquake or seismic risk. In any risk or any disaster, this is these four words are important. One is risk, the other one is hazard, the third one is vulnerability, and exposure. All these four are different different component with different characteristics. Okay, so it is not synonymous. Okay, so we should have some understanding about when we say what is hazard and how is it different from vulnerability. Okay, and how is it different from exposure. Okay, risk is the overall thing. Okay, for example, how here we said how risk assessment for a particular region can be taken. So we need to know how we need to know three components in order to assess the risk involved in a particular disaster for a particular area. Okay, hazard, seismic hazard here example quantifies the ground motion generated due to the earthquake. Okay, so here we are discussing in earthquake. The hazard component is the amount of impact, okay, that we may have to encounter because of earthquake is one thing that needs to be assessed. The second component is vulnerability. The seismic vulnerability quantifies the propensity of the types of building to be damaged due to the earthquake. So here what are the things that will get impacted because of release of this particular energy? Okay, so what are the things that is vulnerable? Okay, of course buildings, the cities and other structures that are vulnerable to the release of energy. Exposure is the last and important component. Okay, where what is the intensity and how much people will get affected. Okay, how to what extent the people will have an impact because of particular hazard. Okay, so all these three components are put together for arriving at the risk involved in a particular disaster, and this is not specific to earthquake. Okay, so this is common. This can be discussed for other disasters as well. Okay, so risk is nothing but hazard, vulnerability and exposure. All three components put together is nothing but the risk of a particular area or particular disaster. Different buildings vary in the degree of vulnerability to the earthquake. Basically, there are two types of things that we should understand. One is geometrical or qualitative characteristics such as height, plan, dimension and elevation configurations of a building. The second one is the structural characteristics of the building. When we discuss about building, okay, so how a particular building is how a particular building will get impacted because of a particular earthquake of so and so scale. Okay, so how it is done? There are two components that has been that is taken. One is the geometrical component or geometrical characteristics of building. The second one is the structural characteristics of the building. Geometrical characteristics of the building. There is a very detailed description on this. What is the height of the building? What is the planned dimension? What is planned dimension? For example, let's say whether it is squarish or rectilinear or C-shaped, T-shaped. Okay, so many configurations are there, right? When we talk about the building form. So how these forms are vulnerable, which is stable, which is less stable, all that is discussed, and all that is actually quantified. Okay, so basically the entire assessment can be taken in two ways. One is the based on the geometrical characteristics, and the second one is the structural characteristics. In structural characteristics, material used for construction, stiffness, quality of construction, strength, other things, other material characteristics are actually considered when we assess the risk of a building with respect to the earthquake. Okay, so these are things I have taken from National Building Code. There is a section called Building Typologies for Seismic Vulnerability Assessment. I'll just quickly go through the main headings, how for each material, how the entire discussion on earthquake is discussed. Okay, so for seismic vulnerability assessment of buildings in India, following parameters are considered for building categorization. Okay, so what is the use? For example, let's say, are we using this method now to evaluate our building? No, we are not going to do that. We already have a map. I'll show you this, and then I'll come back to discussing this. We already have this map, okay, seismic zone map of India, where we say that zone 2, zone 3, zone 4 and zone 5. Okay, and I don't know whether I have told you this or not. Earlier we had zone 1 as well, but it was removed very recently, not less than a decade's time. That zone 1 has been removed from the Indian subcontinent. That means all the Indian subcontinent is vulnerable to earthquake. Okay, the intensity will be different, but but every building is vulnerable to earthquake. Okay, so that's why this in the 2015 version, the NBC National Building Code has revised the zones. Okay, so where zone 1 has been removed, where zone 1 was actually the no risk zone with respect to earthquake. Actually, now in the revised one, all the Indian subcontinent is put under some risk zone. Okay, it may be low or to very high. So there are four types of zones. One is called low damage risk zone, moderate damage risk zone, high damage risk zone, and very high damage risk zone. Okay, so the blue one is low damage risk zone. Okay, for example, all this area is under blue zone or the zone 2. Okay, Vijayawada is in zone 3. Okay, you can see from the image we are here. This land mass Chennai. Okay, Chennai, Nellore and Vijayawada, all this are put under zone 3, which is moderate damage risk zone. And you can see the other zone. Okay, zone 4, very high risk zone, northeast, and some part of northwest and the northern part of some portions of North India is classified as a very high risk zone. And high risk zone is again most of it is under the Himalayan belt. Okay, so both of this zone 5 and zone 4 all you can see is under the Himalayan belt. Okay, whereas other zones, which is zone 2 and zone 3, is primarily the entire India is put under this. Okay, now the question is how this zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5 has been arrived, on what basis this has been arrived. Okay, that is what we are discussing, and to arrive at this, the National Building Code has used these characteristics which we are going through now. Okay, so let me read it again. For seismic vulnerability assessment of buildings in India, following parameters are considered for building categorization. Okay, so number 1 of that is material type. All buildings are primarily classified under the following things. Whether when the classification is done, this is how it is done. Okay, in terms of material, the entire building has been considered as either masonry and mortar type, or concrete, steel, or wooden structures. Then when it comes to load resisting system, okay, this is about material, this is about load resisting system. Some of the building has been classified as masonry wall system, okay, where what do you say where this is all load bearing structures. We understand this also with load bearing structure, LBS, right, where we are not using columns and steels. The steels and steel concrete is not used, only masonry structure is used. Okay, so this is one type of system. Or the second type of system they have considered is structural concrete and also the steel, okay, based on the load resisting system. Wood and bamboo is also taken into consideration because these are some of the commonly used materials across the Indian subcontinent, right? So all those things have been considered under load resisting system. Height of the building. Vulnerability of building to the earthquake changes with height of the building. Okay, this is also another important point. Hence, the number of stories of the building is considered for the building classification. Okay, there is a table actually given. Probably I'll see if I can show it. The third component. Okay, first let us. The first component is material. The second component is the load resisting system. It can be based on the material again used. Third is height of the building is another component used for classifying whether this building is vulnerable or not. A fourth component used is irregularity. Okay, horizontal irregularity in buildings, and also there is something called vertical irregularity in buildings. Okay, what is this horizontal irregularities in building? I'll show you some case studies tomorrow on these things, but let us get these words registered so that maybe when we discuss with example, we'll be in a position to understand it. Okay, it's all because of the form, that the kind of form, built form that we use. Okay, in terms of in plan. Okay, so it can be torsional irregularity. What is reentrant corners? I will show you examples. Okay, for each of this category I'll show you example, but for now we'll just go through the keywords, how these parameters are used for arriving at different earthquake zones in India. Okay, diaphragm discontinuity, I'll show you what is this as well. Non-parallel systems, horizontal irregularity. How you can remember this is, the other two is easy. Okay, one is first we saw on material, we know it. Okay, different materials we use, and we also know this load system, how load system will will have an impact on how building will behave. Height also we can relate. Probably there is a little new word, but it is not a difficult word actually. Irregularity means irregularity in form. Okay, not all building is like this, right? I said building can be C-shaped, building can be U-shaped, T-shaped. We can have buildings like this, right? So all these are put as irregularities in building shape. Okay, so in 2D we can say that these are horizontal irregularities. Similarly, vertical irregularities can also be seen. For example, let's say we don't have all buildings like this. Okay, some buildings may be like this. Okay, some buildings are with stilts. Okay, some buildings are like this. Okay, so the irregularity in the geometry can be in vertical. The irregularity in geometry can be because of the different plan that we have, horizontal irregularity also. Okay, so this is the fourth component. Fifth component, quality of construction. Okay, whether the code specifications are followed or not. Okay, this is also taken into consideration. Okay, how they have checked primarily based on the material used and also based on the visual appearance. When we look at the buildings, one thing that we actually don't do in building construction BMC classes is we read only theoretical aspect and then we try to draw details and we learn that. The other technique that we are actually not doing is going to site and actually visualizing it. Okay, by looking at materials, by looking at the finish also, we can say that whether right composition of material has been used, right quality of material has been used or not. All that can be done by looking at the construction as well. Quality can be assessed. Next component, okay, where the site is located, where the building is located. Okay, so based on that as well, whether the slope is less than 20 degree or higher than 20 degree, the building has been classified as less vulnerable and more vulnerable. So all these 6 components has been used and different samples has been taken across the country, and based on the performance of the buildings and based on the characteristics that we have discussed, and based on the assessment, the entire country has been divided in different zones, and if there is, for example, let's say if they say low damage risk zone, in the sense if we have an impact, if we have an earthquake, the impact will be low here in this particular case, or medium in this, moderate in this particular case, high in these particular cases, and so on and so forth. This is how the seismic map, seismic vulnerability map of India has been prepared, and this is a part of National Building Code. Yeah, recent ones. Earlier also we had. This is a revised one. Okay, I think I will stop here. There are other things that we will discuss. Probably we'll continue this discussion. How it is, how this energy is actually impacting the building, and what are the keywords that is used, and what are the structural measures that we can take. Yeah. So I'll stop here. And if you have any questions, clarifications, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll meet tomorrow.